All right, so here goes the discussion of the climax, which is chapter 28. You'll notice that it starts in your book and then chapter 28 picks up in your packet because we felt that you might need to closely read pages 350 to 357. So I'm just going to basically summarize, recap, and then in the discussion of chapters 29 through 31, we'll kind of unpack it a little bit more. But in chapter 28, the children are at the pageant, and poor Scout has a very embarrassing moment. She falls asleep when she's supposed to be on stage. So when, the word pork is yelled, that's her cue that she's supposed to go on stage. But she misses her cue, and then she's told that she ruined the play, and she doesn't want to leave with everybody else. She's too embarrassed, so therefore she and Jem wind up hanging around after everyone else has left. Now, when they were on their way to the play, when they were on their way to the pageant, something happened that was a little bit of foreshadowing. Someone jumps out at them, plays a trick on them. Remember, it's Halloween night, and that someone is Cecil Jacobs. So that was, again, a little bit more of suspense, a little more foreshadowing, a little build up in the beginning of the chapter that leads to what occurs towards the end of the chapter. So the children are walking home from the pageant. It's pitch black. Like I said, everyone has already left. Scout insisted that they wait because she was too embarrassed to come out and face people. And she and Jem are on their way home. She's still wearing her costume, and which is kind of glow in the dark because Jem says to her the paint that was used, he says to her, your fat streaks are showing. So she's visible, but the two of them are walking home, and they realize that they hear a sound, they hear a noise following them. And when they're walking, they hear the noise, but when they stop, the noise stops, and it sounds like the swish, swish, swish of somebody walking behind them. Now, their initial thought is that it's Cecil Jacobs again, because he had jumped out and tried to scare them on their way to school. And so they continue to walk, and then they get this feeling like it's not Cecil, it's not a child. And so someone jumps out at them and attacks them on their way home. And what's interesting is that Scout's costume plays a major role in protecting her, which will kind of come out later in the later chapters. But remember, Scout's costume is made of like chicken wire, and so she's kind of trapped in it though. And so she hears someone come out of nowhere, and then she and Jem are attacked. She hears on page 351, I'm going to go halfway down the page, we were nearly to the road when I felt Jem's hand leave me, felt him jerk backwards to the ground. More scuffling, and there came a dull crunching sound, and Jem screamed. Well, what is that crunching sound? You guessed it, it's Jem's broken arm. So whoever has jumped out at them on their walk home is responsible for Jem getting his arm broken. If I continue reading, I ran in the direction of Jem's scream and sank into a flabby male stomach. Its owner said, oof, and tried to catch my arms, but they were tightly pinioned. Remember, she's stuck inside of this costume. His stomach was soft, but his arms were like steel. He slowly squeezed the breath out of me. I could not move. Suddenly, he was jerked backwards and flung on the ground, almost carrying me with him. I thought, Jem's up. So Scout assumes that the person who pulls this man with the flabby male stomach and the strong arms off of her is Jem. But it's not until the next page on 352 that she realizes that there's a fourth person. So it's her, it's Jem, it's the person who attacked them, but it wasn't Jem who pulled her off. Jem is out. It is a fourth person. And so the mystery becomes, who is that fourth person? That fourth person winds up picking Jem up and carrying Jem home to the Finch house, where the children walk in and, Jem doesn't walk in, Jem is carried in. Scout walks in and explains to Atticus and Aunt Alexandra that they've been attacked. And that's when Atticus then calls the doctor, and he calls Sheriff Tate. Now, we find out when Dr. Reynolds arrives that Jem does have a broken arm, so that's confirmed. And then on page 356, Scout makes note of who this person is who has carried Jem home. It's the top of the page. And Alexandra was sitting in a rocking chair by the fireplace. The man who brought Jem in was standing in a corner leaning against the wall. He was some countryman I did not know. He had probably been at the pageant and was in the vicinity when it happened. He must have heard our screams and come running. So at this point, we don't know who the fourth person is, other than the fact that the person is someone that is unknown to Scout, unknown to our narrator. Now, at the end of the chapter, Hecate comes in carrying Scout's costume and alerts Atticus that someone is dead, and that someone is Bob Ewell. So on page 357, Atticus says, "What is it, Heck?" "Mr. Tate found his neck and rubbed it. Bob Ewell's lying on the ground under that tree down yonder with a kitchen knife stuck up under his ribs. He's dead, Mr. Finch." So now you see how it all started with the Ewells, which was from chapter 1, that Scout maintained the Ewells started it all. Well, Jem's arm is broken, and it was broken by none other than Bob Ewell. Now, if you're wondering what's his motivation, if you haven't put it together, his motivation is to get back at Atticus. Remember when Tom died, he said 1 down, 2 to go. If you really want to get at someone, if you really want to hurt someone, you go after their children. And so if you remember, Aunt Alexandra was fearful that Bob would try to do something that was furtive. And that word furtive meant sneaky. And so he waited. He bided his time from the summer until October 31st, when he would have access to the children, and his intention was to kill them. Fortunately, he hasn't succeeded because a fourth person has intervened and has helped to save the kids. Now, who is that fourth person? We'll have to find out in the next couple of chapters, but that is the climax of the story. So you finally realize how the plot kind of came together with the arm and with the Ewells. Bob Ewell tries to get revenge on Atticus Finch for taking the case and for defending Tom Robinson, and he tries to do that by going after his children.